This is good old boy Mike from Sips, Suds, and Smokes podcast, and you're listening to Pop Goes Your World.
If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. And while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.
And now it's time for our feature presentation.
I'm Chris McBrien, and the pop culture from Generation X is everything to me.
And I'm Derek Myers, and I'm here to educate Chris on the great pop culture of today's generation.
Episode 234, Movie Monsters. Chris McBrien along with Derek Myers, and this is Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations. Since it's close to Halloween, Derek and I thought it might be fun to take a look back on some of our all-time favorite movie monsters. We're each going to run down our top 5 movie monsters this week. But before we get to our lists, Derek, what pop culture have you been able to take in since we last spoke, my friend?
Hey, Chris. Well, I had a chance to watch something really good, something really crappy, and, of course, a bunch of documentaries.
So educate me on all this pop culture, my friend.
I'm going to start with the bad. So
okay. We'll work our way up.
As I often do every week, as the streaming services provide us with new content, I take a look at what the new content is. And sometimes you find a diamond in the rough, and sometimes you just find a big steaming pile of poo. This week, the big steaming pile of poo was on Netflix. It was a movie called Blackout, starring Josh Duhamel, who was in the TV series Las Vegas. He was also in the Transformers movie franchise as the military guy. And I thought, oh, here's this shoot 'em up movie where he's like, you know, this guy who is attacked by drug dealers and loses his memory and wakes up in a hospital and has to fight his way out. I thought, oh, okay, this could be a good shoot 'em up. I watched like 10 or 15 minutes. I'm like, this is awful. So I started fast forwarding to see if it looked like it got any better. Oh, no, it didn't. It didn't look like it got any better. So I'm like, that's it. Those 15 minutes of my life, I'm never getting back. I'm done. So Blackout on Netflix just dropped. Do not watch. 2 giant thumbs down, stinky, smelly pile of poo.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know that.
All right.
Like now, I was going to watch it anyway.
Well, now here's one you might have actually watched, or at least you might have actually heard of, that was excellent.
Okay.
From 1987. It's a movie called House of Games. Written and directed by David Mamet. Have you seen it?
No. I mean, okay, so if anybody knows 1987, I mean, like, I think it's me, but I don't know that movie. I'm not familiar with it. I know David Mamet. He was a playwright, but...
Yes. So this was his first movie.
Okay.
It was based on a play. I believe it's based on a play that he had some writing credits on. It stars Joe Mantegna. The lead is Lindsay Krause, who is a performer. When I watched it, I was like, I recognize her. And I had to look up her IMDb, and nothing specific jumped out at me. It's just she's been in a lot of stuff. She's made a lot of TV appearances, but so she's the lead. Joe Mantegna is sort of the number 2. It also has JT Walsh and a few other sort of character actors that as I was watching, I'm like, oh, I recognize that guy. Oh, I recognize that person. And it's a movie about, here, I'll just read you the IMDb description here. It says, a psychiatrist who, as I mentioned, is played by Lindsay Krause. A psychiatrist comes to the aid of a compulsive gambler and is led by a smooth-talking grifter into the shadowy but compelling world of stings, scams, and con men. And it was great. It reminded me in a certain way of a movie like The Sting, where it talks about...
That movie was good. The Sting.
Yeah, I mean, hey, The Sting is a 10 out of 10 movie. This I would probably give like a 9 out of 10, though. It was
really
very good. And I mean, I'm a big fan of Joe Mantegna. He did a great job in this. And again, it's about card players and gamblers and con men and scams and tricking people. And some of it, they pull back the curtain for the audience to be completely in on it. And other things are happening and the audience is not aware of it until things actually come to fruition. So it's sort of both showing you some of the things as they happen and other ones you sort of hopefully are picking up on, but also hopefully not picking up on, because there's a lot of surprises in this movie. It's fantastic. It's called House of Games from 1987. I'd give it a 9 out of 10. It was great. It's a hidden gem. And the reason I even looked for it was one of the other podcasts I listened to, they're big fans of David Mamet, so they're always talking about his work. And in a recent episode, they were talking about, one of the guys said how this is one of his favorite all-time movies. And I was like, when I saw it in the lineup, it was on one of the cable channels. I thought, oh, there's that House of Games again. So I recorded it, and yeah, I was very, very happy that I did. It was
and Joe Mantegna was in Barry, if I'm not mistaken. I think he showed.
Yes, I think he played himself. Actually,
yeah, if I'm not mistaken, he was like, friends with like the Henry Winkler character. Like,
yeah. So, but anyway, so if you have a chance to watch House of Games from 1987, it was great. I think you'd really enjoy it, but I think a lot of our listeners would enjoy it too. Cool. It's a little slow at the beginning, but that's just sort of the way that a lot of those 80s dramas are paced. So, that was definitely my my excellent highlight of the week from scripted movies. And then I had a chance to watch a few documentaries.
For 40 days and 40 nights, he watches documentaries. He likes to learn about the world. It's Derek's Documentaries. Derek's Documentaries.
What did you learn about the world in your documentaries this week, my friend?
Okay, so very much like the movies I just talked about, I saw one documentary that was pretty bad, and then I saw a couple of really good ones. So I'll start with the bad one. So again, they can't all be winners. And I want to say this one was on Netflix as well, and it's about black holes. It's called Black Holes: The Edge of All We Know. And hey, I'm a science nerd. I'm a NASA nerd. I like things about space and planets and space travel and science and discovery and all that stuff. So I thought, hey, let's see what this one's all about. I watched.
Sounds interesting.
Half an hour of this one, and it was just so boring. Now, I'll be honest. There are some science documentaries where it's just the science is so in the forefront of the movie that it's hard to follow because the science is over your head.
Right.
And that is not the case with this one. They really dumb it down for a common audience, but it was just straight up boring. I really wanted to like this. This is a topic that I thought, I'm going to really enjoy this. And there were a few little bits here and there that I thought, this is kind of fascinating. And then they didn't go down that avenue. They sort of took a left turn and went somewhere else. Again, it runs like an hour and a half. I watched about a half an hour, and I just finally had to give up on it. It was not great. Wow. And it sort of hurts me to say that about a documentary that's on a topic I thought I was going to enjoy, but Black Holes: The Edge of All We Know, I'm going to give that one 2 thumbs down. It was not great. It wasn't as bad as the Blackout movie I just talked about, but it wasn't great. And considering how long it was, don't carve that kind of time out. Then I had a chance to start watching a series. I believe here in Canada we got it on Crave, but in the US I believe it first aired on Vice. So they've done 2 seasons of this. It's 10 45-minute episodes, and they've done 2 seasons. It's called The Dark Side of the 90s. And what they do is they've just like the title says, they find an interesting topic from the 90s that had a little bit of controversy to it, and they do a little 45-minute documentary on it. And I had a chance to watch 3 of the episodes. I think one or 2 from season 1 and like 1 from season 2. So the first one I watched was all about Arsenio Hall. And it was about his rise to fame, how he got his talk show, the influence and power that he had, what he did with it, and then the problems that he ran into and how he sort of fell from grace. I didn't know any of this stuff because when his show started, I was just like 13, 14 years old. So all I saw was the product that came on TV. I didn't really understand the larger ramifications, but it was fantastic. It was really fascinating. Then the next one I watched was called Grunge and the Seattle Sound, and it was all about the birth of grunge music, but it was as told from like the producers and like the people who put out those first indie albums that started grunge. So again, a slightly different perspective on a topic that I thought I knew a lot about. And then the third one I watched was about the rise of black sitcoms in the 90s with the rise of the Fox TV network and how they were trying to get programming for their new network, and they realized if they put out sitcoms that speak to a black audience, they're going to have almost exclusive black audiences that they can then market their products to and sell advertising to. And again, it was a huge hit. It was like a renaissance for representation on TV. And again, fascinating. And then some very poor business decisions that happened in the late 90s, mostly by rich white people, that just sort of screwed everything. But 3 fascinating documentaries. I can't wait to continue to watch this one. The series is called Dark Side of the 90s. Now, there's 20 episodes out so far. They're not all going to be gold. Like I saw one on there that was about Baywatch. You know what? I couldn't give a crap about Baywatch. I'll still watch the episode because I'm sure there's things in there I'm going to learn about. But there's a few other, like there's one in there about the start of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Again, I don't know anything about that, but I'm fascinated to watch it. So it's a lot of good stuff in there. I'm looking forward to sort of digging into that. And they're short. They're 45 minutes. So you can bang out a few of them in one sitting. And then the third and final documentary I want to talk about A+, 2 thumbs up. Can't talk about it highly enough. 45-minute documentary. I think it was on HBO. It's called 38 at the Garden. And it's about the basketball player Jimmy Lin, who, when he was in his peak, had Linsanity, and it was like all his fame and stuff. And it was just about how this Asian American basketball player had all this diversity trying to break into the NBA. And then when he was finally given a shot, just blew people away. Nobody could really believe how good this guy was. People were like confused, like, oh, where'd he come from? And because he had to follow a non-traditional path into the NBA. And the title 38 at the Garden is about, I think it was his 5th ever game he played. They went into the Madison Square Garden, and they were playing against the Lakers, Kobe Bryant in his prime. And here's this young kid, 5th game ever. He scores 38 points in the game. And like, I'm not a big basketball fan, but even I know that's a hell of a lot of points for one player in one game, especially when you're playing against what at the time was one of the absolute best basketball teams ever to suit up. So it's awesome. And for our Canadian listeners, I didn't know this, but Jimmy Lin was on the Toronto Raptors when they won a championship a couple of years back. So there's that connection too. If you're just like, well, why would I care about this? So it was fantastic. 38 at the Garden. Documentary is about 45 minutes. You get on HBO or Crave here in Canada. Take a look. It was awesome. So a couple of really good ones this week. House of Games from 1987, 2 huge thumbs up. 38 at the Garden documentary, 2 huge thumbs up. So check those out.
Very cool. My pop culture to share this week, it's somewhat related to our topic. We're doing movie monsters. So check this out. Here's the thing. This podcast is obviously about how I only ever watch old stuff, right? You're always trying to convince me to expand my horizons. And, you know, you're like, oh, you never give newer things a chance. Well, sometimes I give in and I watch some of the suggested or the trending things that are on Netflix. Totally out of my element, you know, I get it. But I try to watch some newer stuff when I can. So recently, my wife and I were looking for something to watch. I go on Netflix, and you know how they have like their top 10 list, you know, like right on the homepage. Yeah. Well, the number 1 show I look is Dahmer, Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. Now, the thing is, I'm old. So I remember back in the early 90s when all this was going on in the news. There's this obsession, it seems, for people that like they're fascinated by serial killers, you know, and gruesome murders and all that kind of thing. I'm not like that. I'm not one of those people. I don't really find this sort of stuff to be very fascinating. I find it to be creepy as hell.
Yeah.
So my wife and I see Dahmer's number 1 show, and I'm like, I don't want to watch this. It's going to creep me out. It's going to give me nightmares. And she's like, well, you know, it's just a show. It's number 1. Like, it must be good. Let's give it a try. You know,
that doesn't mean that it must be good.
So she wants to give this thing a try. So, Derek, I watched the first episode. That was it. And it was 5 days ago. I haven't slept since. That gave me some serious nightmares, man. It was literally one of the creepiest things I've ever watched. And I kept saying to my wife, like, oh man, I'm having these nightmares about being inside that apartment. You know, like it's all like dirty and there's blood and there's this barrel in the corner. You just know there's body parts in it. Like it's just, oh, damn, man. I'm like, oh, freaked out. The whole thing is just so creepy. It's evil. And the fact that it was real just makes it all worse to me. You know, just knowing that evil like this exists. Oh, man. Needless to say, I was back to watching Meatballs and Stripes for the rest of the week. Just to bring myself back. So anyway, let's lighten things up a little bit with a joke.
Here's your dad joke of the week.
Since we're doing our top 5 movie monsters this week, I thought I'd do a related dad joke for you, Derek. Okay? So why was there no food left at the end of the monster party?
I don't know, Chris.
Because everyone there was a goblin. They were a goblin, Derek.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
They were a goblin. They were a goblin.
Happy pandemic-versary.
Don't be ridiculous.
Okay, well then, have I got a show for you?
Oh yeah, because I watch that shows so much.
I can't wait for you.
Oh, that's right up your alley.
30 bags of potato chips and 12 bottles of liquor.
So this looks like something that would be up my alley.
doing crappy. How you doing? And you're like, I'm doing crappy too.
I want it to end. I want them all to go to jail.
We need to lock you up for telling that joke.
I think that would be best.
Okay, so we thought with Halloween coming up and all, that maybe we could do a topic this week that's somewhat related to Halloween. So we decided to do a top 5 list of our all-time favorite movie monsters. But one thing, before we get to our list, Eric, did you ever have a favorite Halloween costume from when you were a kid, or even as an adult for that matter? Like maybe give me 2. Maybe give me your favorite costume memory as a kid and your favorite Halloween costume memory as an adult. Do you ever dress up as an adult?
No, I never dressed up as an adult.
So did you ever have anything as a kid that you wore? Like that you remember?
Yeah.
Like, do you have any favorites?
Yeah. Well, and these are, neither one will come as any surprise. One that I really remember that I really liked was my mom made me a Batman costume. Shocking, I know. And there's photographic evidence. I have some pictures of me. I think I was probably 5 or 6 years old. So I was pretty young. And of course I look adorable in my Batman costume. But the one that I remember, I don't really remember, but the picture evidence is there, is one year I went as the Incredible Hulk, because as a little kid, I loved the TV show with Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk. And so, my mom had bought me like green leotards and like a green turtleneck. And then she bought like green face makeup. And so she made my face all green and my hands all green, but the rest of me, I had like the turtleneck and the tights. And then she had like this old dress shirt of my dad. She had like all ripped up, and then the purple pants were all ripped. Yeah, no. And again, there's pictures of it.
That would be
it's like
great.
This little kid with the green face makeup just going, grrr. It's a pretty funny picture. And I think I was probably 4 or 5 years old. So like, I think the Hulk one was before the Batman one. And yeah, it was, those are the two that I don't actually remember being in the costumes, but I remember the pictures so vividly because they're constantly being shown. They seem to pop up every year. Oh, I remember these from when you were little. So yeah, shocking. I know. Derek went as superheroes as a little kid.
The one I remember from when I was a kid, I was Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica when I was 8.
Nice.
I love that costume. I used to love that show so much. Oh my God. And as an adult, I once went to a party dressed up as J.C. Washington, which was a character I played on my old TV show. It was probably the most embarrassed my wife has ever been with me, ever. Because not only did we do Funky Cops on Insult to Injury, but we did a pilot for Funky Cops. That's where J.C. Washington came from. It was this character that I created. And like, we did this pilot for the show. Like, it was actually shot, and dailies actually exist out there somewhere, but it was never finished and never released. But the old footage from my Insult to Injury show, it's available on YouTube. It's also on my IMDb page.
I know.
Yeah. So you can if you can see it on there. But anyway, so those are some memories I have of being a kid and adult dressing up. Halloween's always kind of fun. And now that I've got kids, like, they love dressing up for Halloween and stuff. So it's a big thing.
Well, and the thing that I've noticed is when I was younger, a lot of families where in my neighborhood were, you know, the dad went to work and the mom stayed home. I mean, that certainly speaks to the privilege I grew up with. Mm-hmm. But the mom staying home, many of them took it upon themselves to really make Halloween costumes a big, important deal for the kids. And most cases, the moms would literally make the costumes. Whereas as I started to get a little bit older and things started to change and you know, 2-parent incomes, both parents were working, the amount of time a parent could spend making their kid a costume went way downhill. And so you had a lot of kids that just ended up with, like, you know, a plastic mask that has an elastic band going around the back and what is basically just a garbage bag with like something printed on the front of it. Mm-hmm. And hey, if that's all you can afford, or that, you know, I understand some people that's what you get. And it's still, as a little kid, a costume's a costume. You don't care how good it is. But as I get older, I find I get a little more judgy, and it's like, oh man, look at these kids. Like, parents put no effort into it, or, you know, the kids, in some cases, the kids clearly don't even want to be in the costumes. And it's just like, okay, well, like, where do you draw that line? So anyway, I'm becoming Chris. I'm a grumpy old man. If your costume's not good enough, you're not getting no candy from my house.
Okay, so we wanted to go with our top 5 movie monsters of all time. And so, like we normally do when we do our top 5 list, we'll start with number 5 and we'll work our way up to number 1. And I'll let you kick things off. So, your number 5 movie monster of all time, Derek, is take it away.
So, the number 5 movie monster on my list is the T-Rex from Jurassic Park from 1993.
Good one.
Now, I'll be honest.
Yep.
I wanted to find a dragon because, Dungeons and Dragons nerd.
Yep.
But I don't really feel we've had good dragon representation in the movies that I've seen. There are some of the newer movies, you see dragon-like creatures in cartoons, or they're very clearly computer generated in a very fake-looking way. But I have yet to see a movie where I feel the dragon is like an important, scary or interesting monster of the movie.
Remember that movie back in the 80s, Dragon Slayer? That dragon was pretty cool. Heard of it,
but never seen the movie.
Oh man, you like dragon? You got to watch that movie. That dragon was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean there have been movies with dragons, but that being aside, the Jurassic Park, it's basically it is a monster movie. It's a very high tech monster movie, and the story is based on a very very famous book, very very fun book to read, and it's all about the science and technology of making these dinosaurs come back to life. But at the end of the day, the dinosaurs start destroying things and people are running how this is basically the same formula you see from those cheesy 50s movies where it's like, oh, the ants are as big as cars. Like it's that same idea where the monster is out to get the people simply because they're mindless animal creature things. So the T-Rex being the pinnacle of what we see in the first Jurassic Park movie, there's so many pivotal scenes in this movie where the T-Rex comes out and it's terrifying. You can just see the eye in the one scene where he comes up to the car, then they're chasing it. And then, it's awesomeness, it's power. And again, you got to remember when Jurassic Park came out, this was the first time that the computer generated creatures looked this good and this real. Like people lost their minds when they saw this on the big screen. And I rewatched
I would argue
it looks amazing.
I would argue that CGI still hasn't caught up to Jurassic Park. It still looks better than stuff today. God, that movie looks good.
Yeah, they really found that X factor, and I think in part it's because it's like with the Toy Story movies. In the first Toy Story movie, the technology limited them to just animating the toys. But by the later Toy Story movies, they could animate like people and they could put other things in there that didn't look wrong. With the Jurassic Park, they just stuck to the dinosaurs. We're going to do computer generated dinosaurs, and people think they know what dinosaurs are, but you saw them in this movie and they looked amazing. So my number 5 movie monster is the T-Rex, the Tyrannosaurus Rex from Jurassic Park, 1993.
Hey, that's a good one. That's a great way to start off. Okay, my number 5. I'm going with Audrey 2, which is the plant from The Little Shop of Horrors from 1986. I've mentioned this before, Derek. I love this movie a lot. The songs in it are great. The cast is great. I think the concept is great. But most of all, the plant is amazing. It starts out as this little thing that it looks like a cross between a Venus flytrap and an avocado. And it doesn't start out talking, right? It does this little sucking noise to let Seymour know that it's hungry. But once it starts drinking blood and then eventually, obviously it moves up to eating people whole, it starts talking and it starts singing. And one of the best descriptions that I've ever heard in regard to Audrey 2's voice was this. Okay, so and I quote, "That of a street smart, funky, conniving villain, rhythm and blues answer to Richard III." And that's from the original script by Howard Ashman, wrote that. So, I mean, what other movie monster can be carnivorous? It eats people. It talks like a 70s stereotype. And it also belts out a song like Mean Green Mother from Outer Space, man. It's Audrey 2 is my number 5. So.
All right. Well, I think that's a good segue. Yeah. So the number monster 4. I'm choosing is also a singing monster. And this, you can't do a countdown talking about monsters without going to the movie Monsters, Inc.
Oh, yes.
So not all monsters need to be scary. As we see in the cartoon Monsters, Inc. from Pixar from 2001, it features a cast almost exclusively of nothing but monsters. There's only one quote unquote real person in this, the little kid. And all the rest of the movie is monsters. So if I have to pick one, I think that it's fair to say I'm going to go with Sully Sullivan, voiced by John Goodman. He represents in this movie. He's the lead scarer in the Monsters Inc. Incorporation, where they're trying to frighten young children because the children's screams provide energy for the town they live in. So it's like you want to be as scary as you can. And he's this, giant 6-7 foot monster with horns and big claws. But of course, he's light blue with purple spots, and he's, a singing, dancing monster who sounds like John Goodman. And, he's lovable, but at the same time he can be scary, as we see in the movie. And of course the whole plot revolves around him having to become the caretaker of this little girl who accidentally wanders into the monster universe. And so he's the monster with the heart of gold, but when he needs to be, he can be big and fearsome and scary. And you can't have a list with your favorite movie monsters and not have at least one from Monsters Inc. So if I have to pick just one, and I can't pick the duo of Mike Wazowski and Sully, I'm gonna go with just Sully as my number 4.
And wasn't the moral of the story that he was able to get more energy out of their laughter?
Yes,
the kids' laughter and stuff. It was kind of nice. Yeah. Okay, my number 4. Okay, so you know me. I pretty much only watch old stuff. That's obviously, we know that. But I'm not totally bereft of knowledge when it comes to anything after 1989. Just mostly bereft of knowledge, really. But there's a film from 2006 that I think, I've always thought this ranks up there as one, just a true cinematic masterpiece. Derek, have you ever seen Pan's Labyrinth?
I saw it once when it premiered at the Toronto Film Festival.
I've always felt that it was like this little girl that has this nightmarish life that she's living. And so she uses escapism to get away from the human monsters that are in her life.
Yeah, the Nazis.
Yeah, exactly. So she goes to this other world, in her mind. She kind of goes underneath her covers and just goes to this other world. But I mean, this other world is something else too. I mean, there's one scene in this movie. It's a dinner feast is going on, and she approaches the table, and there's this weird humanoid creature that's sitting at the head of the table. He's all smooth and pink, and he doesn't have any eyes. And then you notice that there's this set of eyeballs on the table, and he picks them up, and he puts them in his hands, and then he puts the backs of his hands up to his face, and then the eyes start to blink, and that's how he sees. He's called the Pale Man, apparently. And he's my number 4. He's freaking terrifying. If you have not seen this movie, even if you just look it up online and see it, it'll throw you for a loop. It is something else. I saw this in the theater when it came out back in 2006. This scene freaked me out. It is one of the most visually interesting and scary monster movies that I have ever seen. This would have taken such a hell of an imagination to come up with this whole thing. So this Pale Man, he not only scares the little girl, he scares the hell out of the audience. And I know because I was one of them when it came out. So that's my number 4, Pale Man from Pan's Labyrinth in 2006. What do you got for number 3?
Yeah, it's a good pickup.
Yeah, it's so scary.
Yeah, so part of my challenge with making this list was I was trying to avoid characters that had appeared in other things before being in a movie. So there's a lot of comic book properties that have been turned into movies that have a lot of interesting characters and monster characters. Sure. So speaking of Del Toro, one of the ones, for example, is Hellboy, who is a very interesting monster character.
That's right.
But he first appeared in comic books. So again, I didn't want to put him on the list. And the reason I think of that is it was the Hellboy movies were just on TV a couple of days ago. The original 2 with Ron Perlman as Hellboy. So I think Hellboy's a great character, but I left him off the list. So instead, I'm going to go to the source of the greatest monsters ever, and that's Greek mythology. We're going to go to Clash of the Titans, and I'm going to talk about the Kraken. Release the Kraken.
Yes. Unleash the Kraken.
Yeah. Not only is this a great, climax to the movie where you have the ultimate monster that's just going to destroy the world kind of thing, but the fact that it's done in that old school stop motion claymation style.
Ray Harryhausen.
Really, yep. Yeah, it's this real throwback to this is how things were done for years and years and years. And this was the absolute best top of the line technology that was available, but it still worked. And yeah, there was some cheesy special effects in Clash of the Titans, but just this idea of the Kraken as the ultimate bad guy, the ultimate monster in this movie that's full of fantastic creatures. You've got the Medusa, you've got Calibos, and that just like there's like giant like scorpion monsters that come out, and it's just, you know, again, this is all drawn from the classic Greek myths, and you can't get a better story than something out of mythology that's been a part of our history and our culture for thousands of years. So you gotta respect the Kraken. So Kraken's my number 3 monster from Clash of the Titans, 1981.
Very cool. And you get to say, unleash the Kraken.
Yepper.
What if I told you for my number 3, Derek, what if I said that one of the all-time scariest movie monsters had a rather non-scary name, like Fluffy? So,
okay.
I have always been a huge fan of the movie Creepshow from 1982. I mean, you know, it's a collaboration between George A. Romero and Stephen King. I mean, come on. I mean, you know, so I like also how it's like this compilation of these like 5 short stories in one. And the thing is, it doesn't take itself too seriously. So it's got this whole kind of comic book feel to it. You've seen the Creepshow, have you?
No, I never heard of it.
Oh, God.
I'm looking it up right now.
Oh, man. So you like comic books, right? The whole movie, it's like watching a comic book come to life, you know, and especially those old horror comic books. So there's a story in it with Stephen King. He actually acts in it. He plays this like simpleton farmer. And then even the birthday cake and the drowning stories, they're all played to be campy, right? So you're watching this movie and like it's like scene after scene of like campy, over the top stories. So then it gets to this short story called The Crate. And so, of course, you think, oh, here we go again. It'd be another campy kind of story, too. But it's not. It's really scary. So, especially in the scenes under the stairs. So, just a quick synopsis of what happens in this story. There's this professor, played by Hal Holbrook. And he's got this, for him, younger, sexy wife. She's really mean-spirited. And she's played by Adrienne Barbeau. She was from Maude. She was Maude's daughter. Oh, she was also in Swamp Thing and Escape from New York.
From New York.
Yes, you had me watch here for the podcast last year. Anyway, so he's got this nightmare of a wife. And so the professor gets called to the college late at night by this janitor one night. This janitor's like, hey, I found this crate here. What's going on with this crate? Well, it turns out inside this crate is this big gorilla-like creature that eats people. And when it attacks people, like it's really bloody and gory and gruesome. So the professor decides he's going to bring his wife down there and have her go in and, you know, to the crate so that it'll eat her too, right? And you don't even see the creature all that much. And then when you do, it's friggin' terrifying. Like it's got these teeth and oh man, it looks like something straight out of hell. You know, I was always pretty easily scared by movies when I was younger. And I remember watching this one late at night, one night on the movie channel. And it just scared the big Jesus out of me. I remember. And they never mentioned the name Fluffy in the movie. I found it online. That's the name of it. But I think they just referred to it as a creature or whatever. But man, it's scary. Oh, jeez. And like I say, especially because they set it up being kind of campy. Scare the bejesus out of you. And then it's back to being campy again after that. So it was pretty cool. So that's my number 3. So what do you got for your number 2 movie monster?
Number 2. Before we go to number 2, I just want to say, when we put this list together, I also, again, I always try and restrict my picks a little bit to sort of narrow the focus. The easiest picks to make on this list would have been your traditional monsters: vampire, werewolf, mummy, Frankenstein's monster.
Yep.
I mean, I stayed away from all of those, although for both werewolves and vampires, I probably could have put together a pretty interesting list. But because those ideas, those archetypes have appeared in so many different movies, it would have been hard to sort of narrow it down to just one without addressing all of them. And then suddenly the show's 3 hours long. So I just stayed away from all of them.
Yeah, me too.
And I tried to limit this to movies that I actually have seen and enjoyed. And a lot of those movies that feature those kinds of monsters, I just haven't seen enough of them to really speak to it. So anyway, We're going to go on to my number 2 pick. This is a great movie. I can't remember. I don't think we've done this for the pod yet, but we will definitely be doing it in the not too distant future. And that is from the movie The Thing from 1982, directed by John Carpenter and starring Kurt Russell. And my monster is literally The Thing from Another World.
Oh, that's a good one.
Now, Chris, have you seen this movie before?
So yes and no. So I have, but I've seen parts of it when I was younger. But I've never actually sat down and watched the whole thing. Some things stand out to me. I remember this guy's head grew legs and was walking. It was really well done at the time. And I remember kind of the end when he's frozen. But other than that, I don't remember much about it. So I have not seen the whole thing. We got to watch it.
So he definitely, yeah. And I love this movie, and it's just had, I think, its 40th anniversary recently. It's quite good. So the thing in question, it's this alien. They don't really give the specifics because the people in the movie don't really know. They're sort of making assumptions here that this alien spacecraft crash landed in Antarctica, many years in the past. And the researchers who accidentally stumble across this alien ship are dumb enough to warm it up. And they realize that once it's warmed up, the aliens that piloted the ship are alive and coming after them. Now, they don't know this at the beginning of the movie. And neither do we as the audience. They're sort of learning about it. And by the time they start to put the pieces together, they realize it's already too late, because this creature can emulate anything that it comes into contact with, any living organism. And every cell of the monster, it has its own instinct to live. So if you, as the example you said, a guy gets beheaded, the head still has the cells of the alien, and it can then still be autonomous and do whatever it wants, and the body can change shape to do things. And so it's this idea, this horrific idea of an alien that can look like your best friend. So it really makes you question who's who, and who is loyal and who is dangerous. But it also is terrifying that even something as simple as a few drops of blood can, in theory, grow out and try and kill you, harm you, or take you over. And it's this ultimate sort of body horror creature that is originally will look just like a person, and then once it's threatened and its true nature has been revealed, it will transform into something grotesque and terrifying. And this is one of those movies I probably watched way too young, because I had again, not a horror movie guy, so seeing the few that I did see really stuck with me. But this is a great movie, great storytelling, great pacing, great characters. And at the heart of it is the monster that the movie is named for, The Thing. And it's my number 2 monster, and it's awesome.
Make a note of that. We definitely got to watch that movie.
Oh, yeah.
And review
it's on
it.
my list.
I agree. Okay, my number 2, I'm going with The Shark in Jaws from 1975.
That's only your number 2? I was sure that was your number 1.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we have rehashed Jaws a million times here on the podcast, and for good reason, too. I mean, it's one of the greatest movies ever made. There's probably not too many more terrifying movie monsters than the shark in that movie. It's always the things that are real that can be the scariest. Like that awful Dahmer crap that I got subjected to the other night. And the thing is, a shark is a real thing, right? It's something that's terrified people around the world forever. And it plays on people's fear of maybe we're not actually at the top of the food chain. You know, you just mentioned you were talking about The Thing, that instinct to live, and like nothing has that greater than a shark, right? And the thing is, mostly because of like mechanical issues, the movie doesn't even let you see the shark for most of the movie, which just makes it more scary, obviously. And, that's well documented. But the first time that you really see the shark is when it's coming for the guy in the rowboat with the Boy Scouts. Remember, it's coming really slowly sideways under the water. That scene scared the crap out of me as a 7-year-old kid when I first saw that movie. Man, that's even worse than Ben Gardner's head for me, And I still think that Quint's death is one of the most horrifying things ever put on film. We throw the word iconic around a lot on this show, but I think that the shark in Jaws is the epitome of movie monsters. It's probably one of the first ones that most people would mention, I think, if you took a poll. So, but for me, it's number 2. Yeah. You thought it would be number 1. And
well, I knew it would make your list for sure. And so, but I just assumed number 1. But I think I have an idea what your number 1 might be if that didn't make it. So I want to just shout out a quick honorable mention then, because it's a good segue, is one of the monsters that I considered but dismissed quite early was the creature from the movie Tremors, because I basically figured it was just a ripoff of the shark from Jaws, except instead of swimming through the water, it basically burrowed underground. And that same idea of you don't see the monster until very late in the movie, so you don't really know what it is. And the fact that it's some sort of either mutated burrowing, worm or whatever it might be, it ultimately borrows very much from the things that had already been done in Jaws. So I thought, you know what, best case scenario, I'm just going to give that one an honorable mention. It did not make my list, but I did consider it briefly. All right, so on
number one movie monster, Derek.
This is my number one movie monster, and I don't think I'm alone with this one. I think a lot of people would put this as their number one, or definitely in their top three, and that is the alien from the movie Alien.
Of course.
Yeah. I think they have become known as the xenomorphs. I think that's commonly what they're called to fans. But just this, we did we did Alien and Aliens back to back as reviews on this podcast. Alien, the first one, definitely more of a horror thriller suspense kind of movie, and then all the Alien movies that came after that became more action adventure shoot 'em ups. But the concept that this alien creature, it starts by, it has multiple forms, and the first form, it's that face hugger thing that lays the egg in the human, and then it grows inside while it eats you from the inside and then bursts out of your chest. And when it does that, it's obviously small, and then it very quickly grows and grows and grows and then becomes bigger than a person. And the fact that it has this long, very smooth head with no eyes. Yes. It's got the giant mouth with the sharp teeth that are always dripping, and then it's got the smaller mouth inside where you would normally think it has a tongue that can shoot out. It has
so stylistic.
It's so terrifying. Yeah. And just the imagination of Geiger to create these creatures. It's unlike anything we had seen before stylistically, but as the movie progressed, it made sense. Like that when they're like, oh, it has acid for blood. And he's like, well, that's a great survival mechanism through evolution. You don't want to kill it or hurt it, because if you do, it's going to, the acid blood will just eat through everyone around it, including, if you're on a spaceship, the floor of the spaceship. And that is used to great effect in all of the Alien movies. The fact that the alien's blood is acidic. But yeah, and then the fact that in the first movie anyway, the single alien that comes on board as an embryo inside of Ash ends up just hunting down the crew of the Nostromo one by one and just taking them out. And it's clear that this is not only is this like an alien creature, but it is a superior specimen to human beings. Like, it is advanced through evolution or science or what have you to be the most perfect and deadly and scariest killing creature there ever was. And to go from the one terrifying alien in the first movie to a whole bunch of them in the second movie, it turns the knob all the way up to 11. And this idea of this terrifying alien has been a fan favorite for, both for being super scary and super cool and super interesting. They've done tons of movies. They did, I think it was 4 Alien movies, and then they came back and they did the Prometheus, and I think they've got 2 sequels on top of that. So they did the Alien versus Predator movies. Predator, another movie that honorable mention, didn't make my list.
But cool.
But yeah. But just this idea of a monster can be on its face quite simple. Like, again, the way this alien looks is, although it's stylish, it's very simple. It's very minimal. But it can still be terrifying. It can still be deadly, and it can still make a lot of sense in the context of the story that it's taking place in. So the alien, the xenomorph alien from the Alien movie, Alien franchise, absolutely my number one monster, no questions. When you suggested the topic, this was my absolute, came to mind first. I'm like, this is my number one. Let's find 5 more to tack onto the list.
Yeah, that's a good pick for number one, and not really surprising for you either. Like, I think that's right. Like, you mentioned that the shark in Jaws you thought would be on my number one. And, I'm the Gen X guy and everything, it does make sense. But I got to go with King Kong for number one. And I'm talking about the original film from 1933. I don't care about all the advancements in special effects. I've mentioned this before. CGI, all that junk. When it comes to Hollywood movie magic, there is nothing more spectacular than watching a giant ape climbing the Empire State Building in New York and then fighting off these airplanes and eventually falling to his death. And the fact that the original King Kong was made almost 100 years ago, and the fact that it still holds up, it just goes to show you how monumental it is. Like, not just the film, but the whole concept. Like, to me, that's what movie magic is, you know? And it's been remade a few times. In 1978, the one with Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange, that was garbage. It's terrible. And Peter Jackson remade it in 2004, but it was all miscast and it was kind of pointless.
It was really long. It was unnecessarily long. It's like, hi, I just made 3 Lord of the Rings movies that made the company a ton of money. And they're like, okay, Peter, here's a blank check. Do whatever you want. And it's like, should have put a little oversight on them. But it had
4-hour King Kong movie. You know?
It had promise. But yeah, I think there was a lot of problems. Visually, some of the scenes with the ape looked great. But yeah, when you get that much money thrown at you, it had better look good. But when you don't have a decent movie to back it up, special effects aren't going to save a crappy movie. So
and you know, your number 5, you were talking about Jurassic Park and the T-Rex. And as amazing as Jurassic Park was, really, if you take it down to its core, let's be honest, it's just King Kong with dinosaurs instead of a giant ape, you know?
Yeah.
And my son watches this show called Lego Masters or something like that. I don't know. And I was watching it with him the other night, and they have these people on that are like experts at building stuff out of Lego. And it was a competition show. You know, you get eliminated or whatever. And they each had to recreate a classic movie scene. And the 2 that really stood out to me, there were these 2 guys that built the scene from Jaws, where the shark comes up onto the boat. And then the guys that won built King Kong up on the Empire State Building, swatting at airplanes. And then the King Kong guys won. You know, I think when you're talking about classic films and iconic movie moments and just plain movie magic, King Kong's number 1 for me. So I had to go with that. So
yeah, no, that's a good pick. When you didn't pick Jaws as your number 1, I figured you probably went classic. I thought it was either gonna be that or Godzilla, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, I thought about Godzilla, but it's just because of all the campy reincarnation. But all that being said, if you go back and watch the original from like 1954, the original Godzilla is quite good. It's quite a good film, and it's quite a movie monster as well. It just didn't quite make my list because I like all this other stuff. So, all right. Anyway, on that note, let's have some
fun with Caveman.
You know, it's funny enough. I was putting together the section, and I was just going to go with a simple round of monster movie trivia. I even had all the questions ready to go and everything. But the thing is, like, I'm thinking, like, this segment isn't called trivia, it's called Fun with Caveman, right? So instead of just straight up trivia, I wanted to have a little bit more fun with you.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with an old reliable format. We've used this before. It's something that we like to call Pick the Flick. Yeah, pick the flick. You get the synopsis, then pick the flick. You get the year, pick the flick. So here's the thing. My number 2 was Jaws, right? And since Jaws was this massive worldwide sensation back in 1975, it led to a whole bunch of, you know, pretty much rip-offs, okay? And they were just basically Jaws with a different monster, okay?
Okay.
So
like how they say Die Hard on a boat, Die Hard on a plane. It was Jaws, but it did like Jaws in a...
Exactly. You did that with me like a couple weeks ago when we did Die Hard. You're right.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you the year and I'm going to give you the synopsis, and you have to, you know, name the flick. You know, that's the name of this. I'm
going to be so bad at these, but okay, let's try it.
No, but the common thread with all of these flicks is they're all Jaws ripoffs.
Okay.
Okay. So
Jaws 2. No.
Movies that ripped off Jaws. Okay. So I'm going to give you the year and the synopsis, and you just name the title of the film. And keep in mind, they're all Jaws ripoffs, okay?
Jaws ripoffs, okay.
1978, when flesh-eating fish are accidentally released into a summer resort's rivers, the guests become their next meal.
Was that Piranha?
One of my favorite films from the 70s, yes.
Who directed that?
The original, was it Joe Dante? I think it was.
Wasn't it like a real famous? Oh no, it was a Piranha 2 was directed by somebody really famous.
Piranha 2, The Spawning is where they fly, and that was directed by James Cameron.
Right. Okay. I knew there was a famous director that was attached to that franchise.
All right. So 1977, a hunter squares off against a killer whale seeking vengeance for the death of its mate.
Did that have John Voight in it?
What Jaws ripoff was that?
I think that movie was called Orca.
It was, but it was with Richard Harris and Charlotte Rampling. Okay. 1999. All right. A little bit more in your wheelhouse.
Okay.
3 people attempt to stop a gigantic crocodile who's terrorizing residents in Black Lake, Maine.
Was that starring Betty White? Was that Lake Placid?
It was Lake Placid. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember that came out on video when I was working at Blockbuster. It was very popular.
Also in 1999, searching for a cure for Alzheimer's disease. A group of scientists on an isolated research facility become the prey as a trio of intelligent sharks fight back.
Yeah. There was a great death scene in this one. It was Deep Blue Sea.
Is the death scene where Samuel L. Jackson standing there and the shark comes out?
Yeah.
Obviously, right.
In the middle of the movie, you're like, Samuel Jackson, he's like the second name on the poster. He just gets killed halfway through the movie. You're like, oh my God, nobody saw that coming.
All right, 1997, a National Geographic film crew is taken hostage by an insane hunter who forces them along on his quest to capture the world's largest and deadliest snake.
Oh, was that with J-Lo? Was that Anaconda?
Yes,
that one had John Voight.
That was John Voight.
There we go.
Yeah,
I knew we'd get him in there sometime.
All right, 2013, when a freak hurricane swamps Los Angeles, nature's deadliest killer rules sea, land, and air as thousands of sharks terrorize the waterlogged populace.
Was that the classic Sharknado?
Yes. All right, 1983, a friendly St. Bernard contracts rabies and conducts a reign of terror on a small American town. What Jaws ripoff was that?
That sounds like Cujo.
It was. All right, 1990, natives of a small isolated town defend themselves against strange underground creatures, which are killing them one by one.
Oh, is that the one I just mentioned? Was that Tremors?
It was Tremors.
Sorry, I stepped on your trivia. Now you know how Yancey used to always feel when you step on his trivia during the show.
Exactly. All right, so we got a couple more Jaws ripoffs for you here. Some of these are beauties. Okay, 1980. A pet baby alligator is flushed down a toilet and survives in the city sewers. 12 years later, it grows to an enormous size thanks to a diet of discarded laboratory dogs injected with growth hormones. Now humans have entered the menu. Derek, what 1980 Jaws ripoff is this?
Yeah, I've actually seen this. This was it just called Gator?
I'm sorry, it was called Alligator. Alligator.
Was that a made-for-TV movie?
No, I don't think it was. Gator was a Burt Reynolds film from like 1974.
Okay, that's why that didn't sound right.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen that movie.
Alligator. Okay. 1976, an 18-foot tall bear terrorizes a state park, leaving it up to a park ranger to save the day. What Jaws ripoff was that?
I have no idea. Was that, no idea.
It's Grizzly.
Oh, Grizzly. Sure it was.
I remember the bear swats and takes a whole horse's head right off in the middle of it.
Jeez.
Okay, 1978. A little coastal town is being terrorized by deadly barracudas.
Was that not just called Barracuda?
Sure was. It was called Barracuda.
Nice.
God, Jaws just got ripped off in so many ways.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, 1981. Something or someone is attacking people one by one on the beach. Some of them are mutilated, but most of them are sucked into the sand, disappearing without a trace.
Wow.
What is
I've never heard of it. I don't know. Trapdoor Spider.
No, it was Blood Beach. Blood Beach. It was this creature under the ground and sucked them down and killed them. It was the first film in the double feature that I had mentioned a couple weeks ago when I went to see Kill and Kill Again, one of my favorite movies from the 80s. Okay, and the last one, 1977. A mutated giant octopus wreaks havoc on a California seaside community. Name the Jaws ripoff.
I'm going to assume they weren't very creative and they just called it Octopus or Killer Octopus.
No, it was called Tentacles.
Oh, of course. That makes so much more sense.
Jeez. I remember when that was on TV, watching it, thinking, "Oh my God, this sucks." I was like 10 years old, and man, this movie sucks, man. So, well, you did pretty good. You got a lot of the Jaws ripoffs, but it was just, it was a real thing there for a while, just to rip off Jaws. So anyway, Derek, next time we get together, it's time for a quote unquote newer movie. So I always subject you to all this old Gen X pop culture around here. So my friend, what's a movie that came out after 1989 that you're going to force me to watch and come back here and review with you?
All right. So this movie was just recently re-released in theaters because the sequel is coming out in about a month. I want you to go back and watch Avatar from 2009, James Cameron. It's been 13 years. I haven't seen this movie in at least a decade. I definitely saw it in the theaters, not in 3D. I definitely saw it 2 or 3 times on home theater when the DVD came out, and I don't think I've seen it since then. And I've wanted to watch this for a while, and knowing that the sequel's coming out, I'm going to watch this anyway. So I thought, you know what, let's give it a go. Now it is long. It's 2 hours and 42 minutes. So, you may have to break it up over a couple of days, but I remember really enjoying this movie. I'm hoping that, like we've said, James Cameron knows how to make a movie. Love him, hate him, regardless of what his personal politics may be, regardless of how he, treats personal relationships, he knows how to make a movie. And I'm looking forward to going back and rewatching this. So, Chris, have you ever seen the original Avatar?
No. And the thing is, my kids are going to love you for this because a lot of times I'm like, they're like, "Oh, what movie do you have to watch for the podcast this week, Daddy?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's like, Stripes or Meatballs or like Splash or whatever we've done." And so this one's going to be more in their wheelhouse. They're going to love it. So it is long, I guess. 2 hours and 40 minutes, you said?
Yeah. But again, it's from what I remember, like many movies this long, it's sort of broken up into like acts. So there's clear divisions of the movie where it's like, okay, we've reached a point, and you can sort of pause it or come back to it the next day. But I think this
is gonna be interesting because that was like the #1 grossing film for a while there.
Yeah, it was James Cameron beating James Cameron when it took over from Titanic. So again, he knows what he's doing, and this movie made a ton of money. So I'm looking forward to going back to it 13 years later to see like how do the special effects still hold up or not, and how are the performances, and who are like a lot of it obviously is motion capture done to represent these blue aliens, but. I'm really looking forward to going back to see it. So we'll take it away. We'll watch it. We'll come back next week. We'll talk all about Avatar, and if we enjoy it, hopefully it'll motivate us to go see the sequel when it comes out here around Christmas time.
True. He's hit and miss for me. I thought Titanic was great, and then when I watched Aliens, I didn't like it that much, and I know everyone thinks I'm crazy for that. So this is going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to doing this. Should be good. All right. Cool. So next time back, we will watch Avatar, and we'll come back here and we will review that movie. But until we do that, I'm Chris McBrien, that's Derek Myers, and we're both saying thank you very much for taking time out of your day to listen to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World. You can contact Chris and Derek at popgoesyourworld.com. Please take a minute and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.